Yo, what's up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. You know who it is. My name is Andrew Jr. Fernando, and today we'll be talking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Fact or fiction? One of the most debated concepts of Christianity that skeptics like to bring up and challenge is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, where Paul addresses skeptics in Corinth who thought that the bodily resurrection of Jesus was fiction, because resurrection don't really happen. Look what Paul states there in verse 14. If Christ is not raised, then our preaching is vain and your faith is in vain. Our faith hinges on the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, because if he didn't, then there's no point in being a Christian. We're following a dead man. And we see this today from Muslims, atheists, and skeptics who deny the resurrection. So, was the resurrection an actual event, and do we have evidence for it? If we dive deep in the historical evidence, we will be surprised with what we find. Now, the argument I'm going to use is the minimal facts argument. I will state three undeniable facts that we will discuss, and four theories that best explain the evidence using logical reasoning. The first fact is that Jesus died on a Friday afternoon by crucifixion under the authority of Pontius Pilate. This is a historical fact that even non-Christian historians agree with. To quote a scholar, he said, if there's one thing we know about Jesus, it's that he died on the cross. No one has ever survived a Roman crucifixion. These were common ways to execute criminals at that time. The second fact is that his tomb is empty. And this is very true. You can go to Israel today and find that Jesus' tomb is empty. And the last fact is that his followers believed they saw a resurrected Jesus, and they preached about it in Jerusalem immediately. And they all died for these claims. Now that we have stated the facts, let's see which theory best explains the evidence. This is a theory that states that the disciples stole the body of Jesus and they lied to everyone that he's alive. There are a few problems with this theory. The obvious one being is that most of the disciples were martyred, and there's no record of any of them ever saying what they were preaching is false. Also, what about the other eyewitnesses? It was not only the disciples who said they saw Jesus, but also the apostle Paul, James the brother of Jesus, and also 500 people. James and Paul were skeptics. James never believed Jesus was the Messiah until he reportedly saw his resurrected body. How could the disciples convince a former skeptic and 500 people that Jesus rose from the dead with no evidence at all? Another problem is there is no motive for the disciples to make such a lie. Remember, all the disciples ran when Jesus was being crucified. Peter even denied Jesus 3 times. Why will the disciples, who were scared of being killed by the Jews, decide to go steal Jesus' body, tell everyone in Jerusalem that he rose again, and end up being imprisoned and even killed for these claims? It doesn't add up. It appears that these people really believed that they saw a resurrected Jesus. But maybe there's another way to explain this. The hallucination theory states that the disciples were seeing things and believed it was Jesus. Well, there are many problems with this theory. First of all, it does not explain the empty tomb. If the disciples were hallucinating a resurrected Jesus, why didn't the Roman guards show them his body? Secondly, hallucinations come from expectation. For instance, if you are on a deserted island and you haven't eaten for weeks, it will make sense that you will start hallucinating food. The disciples were not expecting Jesus to rise from the dead. This is seen by the fact that some of the disciples, when they encountered the resurrected Christ, they were in disbelief. Lastly, hallucinations come in one or two forms. It's either you hear something or you see something. It's very rare for both to happen. It's even also very rare for multiple people to hallucinate the same thing at the same time. It's even rarer for a hallucination to last over long periods of time. So the hallucination theory does not work also. Also the conspiracy theory. Maybe this whole story was made up by 3rd century Catholics. Which brings me to my next point. What if all the Gospels were just fabrications of 3rd century Catholics? This theory is similar to the conspiracy theory, but again, it fails to account for the empty tomb and sudden preaching in Jerusalem. The problem with the mythic theory is it's not true. We have Greek manuscripts of the Gospels that date back to 65 AD. Also, like the conspiracy theory, why would the disciples die for a myth they made up? This one is just not true. So we have a dilemma here. So the disciples didn't steal the body, they didn't hallucinate, and they're not making stories up. So what accounts for eyewitnesses, conversion of skeptics, disciples dying for their disbelief? What can account for this? Well, there's only one explanation: the resurrection. Think about it. How can we explain an empty tomb, multiple eyewitnesses, and the rise of the biggest religion the world has ever seen? How can men die for the belief that they saw the resurrected Christ? The fact is, Jesus did rise from the dead. The resurrection explains all the evidence perfectly. Of course, the disciples who were once coward had the courage to die for Christ because they actually saw him. So this video was pretty short and pretty chill, you know what I mean? I just wrote it, and yeah. I'm Andrew Jr. Fernando. It sounds like a radio podcast now. Subscribe and follow the channel. I'll be posting more content like this. The resurrection of Jesus Christ did happen. He's alive. Go tell everybody.
Hallelujah. Jesus is alive. Death has lost its victory, and the grave has been dead.